And you know what's going to happen now, Carson? You should admit your situation. There will be more dignity in it.
You go to hell.
All right. Let me ask you something. If the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule?
Bundy here, you there. Today, we're discussing 2026 keepers in the Real Deal League. I've taken a look at your rosters. I've taken a look at the possibilities. Some are depressing, some are obvious, and some are amazing. So let's get started with Highlander Genesis. I feel comfortable calling Andy Highlander now that he's tied for the lead. He's no longer our superior, so I feel no need to mock him. Andy was in a relationship with Kyren Williams for the past 2 seasons. This season, selecting him with his 9th selection, 83rd overall. He can no longer pick Kyren Williams as a keeper. I don't think he would pick Kyren Williams even if he had the choice. Chris Rodriguez is one of his choices here. Now, Chris Rodriguez was picked up on free agency by Pedro. Out of all the Commanders running backs, I think he's the most physically imposing. It's a question mark. Is he going to be a worthy waiver pickup in the 2nd or 3rd week of the season? Maybe, but it's not enough to pull the trigger. It's not enough to pull the trigger on him because he didn't show you much. Instead, Andy has Michael Wilson here, who also comes with a caveat. Now, Michael Wilson was picked up by Colt of Jolt. Whatever the fuck. I think I called you Jolt a couple weeks ago, Pedro. He was also picked up by Pedro in free agency, so if I'm not mistaken, that locks him into the 13th round. Someone please correct me if that's not the case. But he comes with a caveat because of Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, Michael Wilson has been brilliant over the past 2 months of the season. Since week 11, it's been 18, 11, 3, 26, 11, 11, and a 14 week 17 against the Bengals. That's an interesting selection, even if he's not the number 1 receiver. But if Marvin Harrison Jr. collapses again, and I think his heart comes into question a bit, I think that's an interesting selection. Andy's last possible selection, I think he realistically only has 2. He's not selecting Aaron Jones. J.K. Dobbins, who is on IR. This was Paul's keeper from last year, selecting him in the 13th round. This means you get J.K. Dobbins in the 12th. And you want to talk about solid numbers at the beginning of the season. Getting injured in week 10, but before that, he was just as consistent for Paul as Javonte Williams. So those are Andy's 2 selections. I don't love it, but it's certainly not the worst keeper situation. Next is his co-host, his partner in crime, Ewok Rape, who fell short in the 2nd round of the fantasy playoffs. For Ewok Rape, I think it's pretty simple. He has 2 very, very good selections to make. Number 1, Travis Etienne, who I was so surprised to see that Travis Etienne was selected by Pedro, once again, in the draft with his 13th pick. We lost all faith in Travis Etienne. He was later then traded to Eric. But Travis Etienne, the possibility of picking him up in the 13th round with these numbers, he's the number 9 ranked running back in fantasy football. It's either Travis Etienne or Trey McBride, the number 1 tight end in fantasy football, selected in the 5th round by Ewok Rape. I think that's a solid pickup. I mean, on one hand, you have such a late pick in Travis Etienne, and you have such a quality. I wouldn't call the 5th round early. I think early is the 4th round. The 5th is starting to get into the weeds a bit, but I can understand if he doesn't want to make that selection with the 5th pick. But Trey McBride is going to be the number 1 tight end in fantasy football once again. And then taking a look at Eric's bench, there's Kyle Monangai, who I think should be mentioned, even though I don't think he would get consideration over Travis Etienne. Maybe over Trey McBride, but not Travis Etienne. He was picked up on free agency by, you guessed it, Pedro. Jesus Christ, he's all over the place. And then he drops people. What I'm showing you now in this Keepers edition is Pedro's habit of picking up players and dropping them. I think I made more selections than him, but I think it was I was defending myself. It was fight or flight, and I died. So that is Ewok Rape's keeper situation for 2026. Quality players here, but he selected them too high, so let's move on. We've been talking so much about him, so let's make him the next subject. Colt of Jote at 7-7. Eliminated in the first round of the playoffs and potentially our fantasy football champion had it not been for Joelicus Maximus. Pedro, similar to Eric, but I think a bit of an upgrade as far as potential, has Chase Brown, who was the keeper selection for J-Ray, selecting him in the 11th round this year. And this is a great selection. The possibility of having Chase Brown in the 10th round. Now, we know that there were injuries to Joe Burrow. That's pretty much what you can attribute his anemic numbers at the beginning of the season. Numbers that ramped up from week 7 and on. He was consistently in the double digits. So if you don't want Chase Brown, I'll take him. Or he has the option of selecting a Team Bundy affiliate, former Team Bundy affiliate, who was drafted in the 5th. This is interesting. Now, later we'll talk about the selections that the commish made and the selections that I made in the early rounds with rookies. But J-Ray selected RJ Harvey in the 5th round, only to drop him just about a month into the season. These are Freudians. I don't know what it is. These guys just aren't good enough for you. You don't get what you need from them immediately, so you just drop them. RJ Harvey benefited off of the injury to J.K. Dobbins, and he took the ball and ran with it, having a solid playoff streak with 13 points last week, 18 in week 16, and 10 in week 15. Brian Thomas Jr. gets no consideration whatsoever. And Teteroa McMillan, who was selected by Team Bundy in round 5. I don't think Pedro's going to make that selection. I think it's realistically between Chase Brown and RJ Harvey. Are the Broncos going to have a committee next year when J.K. Dobbins is healthy? I don't know if it was an ACL injury. I don't know if he's going to be out longer than the beginning of the season. But I certainly think RJ Harvey is a selection that you should pay attention to. But it's in the 5th round in comparison to Chase Brown, the proven player who is the number 1 running back in his, now that I say it, I think I'd give the possibility of Pedro selecting Chase Brown or RJ Harvey to 75-25 in favor of Chase Brown. I think that's going to be Colt of Jote selection. Make sure this is not your name at the beginning of the 26th season, sir. Okay, moving on. Remember earlier when I said there are teams with worse situations? This is one of them. Now we're going to discuss Get These W's, Hensel's team, who I'm taking a look at his options, and he might have to take a risk. Ramondre Stevenson, selected 11th in the 11th round by Ewok Rape, the 107th overall pickup. Ramondre Stevenson is an option. He's getting reps. He might be in the middle of a committee next year. I hope not. Maybe he gets gets traded. You don't know what happens here. But Ramondre Stevenson is a consistent, solid NFL running back. He's not a home run running back. He's not a guy that's going to burst out 40-yard runs. He's just going to get you consistent 5-7-yard gains. That's pretty much what he does. And Jackson Dart, who I think should be considered by Hensel, picked up on waivers by Pedro. And of course, Pedro dropped him just about, how many days later? Pedro picks him up on the 1st and drops him on the 8th of October. Jesus Christ, this guy's relentless. Jackson Dart, who I think Hensel should take in as a possibility for a keeper. Just phenomenal numbers in the middle of the season when he was stacked up with another rookie who we'll talk about in just a second. But Jackson Dart, though he was injured for a couple of games, if I'm weighing in Ramondre Stevenson's possible committee and Jackson Dart being linked up with Malik Neighbors and that other rookie who we'll mention, I don't know. It's certainly not going to be Alec Pierce. It's certainly not going to be Jordan Addison. Hensel might be one of the only people that should be selecting a quarterback in the 2026 season. And here we see James Conner, who is on IR. Earlier in the season, I mentioned his age, and he showed his age, getting injured in the 3rd week of the season. He was selected 3rd by Hensel, so that's not going to happen. It's either Jackson Dart or Ramondre Stevenson. Moving on. Big Papa J. Ray with his 5-9 season, ending 10th because he lost the 9th place game. Them's the breaks, Jay. Jay has the option of going with a rookie phenom or an established fantasy football back. Rico Dowdle, who Jay selected, and it broke my heart. I was facing Jay, and I had the upper hand. I stared at Rico Dowdle on the player pool, and I chose not to pick him up, only for Jay to pick up Rico Dowdle, and he went bananas on me, and he continued to go bananas on the entire league. He scored 28 points that week, 29 points the following week. He went wild. He can be selected in the default position that I believe is the 13th round. It's either Rico Dowdle or Cam Skattebo or Scattaboo. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. This guy is a beast. He's an animal. He was selected in the 12th round by J. Ray. He can have him in the 12th. That's most likely what he's going to do. Rico Dowdle is it's enticing to pick him up, I'm sure, because next year, Chuba Hubbard, just one of those situations where you don't know where they're going to go. I know the Carolina Panthers are in the thick of the playoff race. They're most likely going to make the playoffs. They're a very solid team this year, but who knows what happens to Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle next season. Can Rico Dowdle become their full-time running back? He can certainly handle the load, but I believe that Big Papa Poop will pick up Cam Skattebo as his 2026 keeper. Next, let's talk about the Tribal Chief. I thought his name was Acknowledge Me. I'm not sure what was he Acknowledge Me at one point and then he just called himself the Tribal Chief. We're going to talk about Ed now, who has 2 potential keeper selections and nothing else. First, I want to say Ed needs to let go of this Giants duo that hasn't served him at all. Great players that will most likely end their careers with other teams and be more productive. Great players grouped together in a unfortunate situation, a horrible franchise that always gets everything wrong. The Jets. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, who's on IR at the moment. I just wanted to say, this pattern of picking these guys, it needs to end if Ed wants to take winning seriously. And, that's debatable whether Ed is serious about winning. Quinyon Judkins, who is on IR, selected in the 14th round by Ed. Quinyon Judkins is a beast. He didn't put up the sort of numbers that I think his talent expected him to put up, but I think he's got a future with the Browns. I don't know what his injury was. Not sure when he's coming back in the 2026 season, but Ed's got to make this selection in the 14th round. I think this guy is built to last, and this is going to give him a good head start. This is what you need, Ed. You need a good head start. Or a man who started off the fantasy football season as the number one tight end in Tyler Warren and tapered off. Even before the injury to Daniel Jones, Tyler Warren just faded away, scoring single digits since week 8 and ending last week with a 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But he is a potential killer for Ed. 13th round selection. So he's going to have to weigh in the options. I think he's going to pick Quinyon Judkins because in this league, running backs are law. Running backs are the prize. So I think he's going to pick Quinyon Judkins. Let's move on. Joelicus Maximus. I remember briefly speaking to Joe about his keepers, and I said, I hate the situation for you. I just hate it. Nobody on his bench. Davante Adams is on injured reserve for him. And let's discuss Tony Pollard, who Joe has had a history with. He was his keeper last year. I thought he just drafted Tony Pollard again. Okay, so Tony Pollard was his keeper in the 8th round. Selecting Tony Pollard in the 7th round, that's a pretty decent pickup, in my opinion. You don't know where the Titans offense is going to be next year. Is Tony Pollard going to be a Titan? I don't know what his contract situation is, but picking him in the 7th round seems a hell of a lot better than even considering Jameson Williams in the 6th. He picked him in the 6th. That was a mistake. And that's about it. That is the only player to speak of and to take seriously on this team. He picked Davante Adams in the 3rd round. You're not going to pick up DJ Moore. Okay, so let's see Devontae Swift. Devontae Swift selected in the 5th round. Hell fucking no. You're not going to repeat that pick. I mean, he had an okay season. What were his numbers? Excuse me. 14th ranked running back. Yeah, a couple double-digit games sprinkled all over the place, but he's not consistent enough to trust him. I think Joe will select Tony Pollard. Such a boring pickup. Tony Pollard was the player that I traded over to Joe in exchange for Jaden Daniels 2 years ago before Jaden Daniels went off. I think it was a pretty fair trade at the time, and Tony Pollard is maintained to just be a middle of the road sort of running back. That's Joe's only selection. That's about it. Oh, you know who we got coming up now? The Pork Chop Expressa at 10-4, losing championships left and right. I don't know why I use that accent. Paul is in a situation that I think is pretty much just a given. Javonte Williams, I spoke about him a couple of weeks ago in one of my playoff predictions. Selected in the 9th round. Selecting him again in the 9th round next year seems like a go. I don't see any reason why he would do anything outside of that. He's got Omarion Hampton, who was selected by Team Bundy in the 3rd round. Did Omarion Hampton live up to his hype? He didn't have the opportunity to get into his flow. So we're going to see what he does next year. Would I select him in the 3rd round again? Probably not. But I mean, towards the end of the season, the last 2 weeks, at the very least, he got you 2 touchdowns. But let's see what happens there. I think Paul is just going to make that selection. I think he's going to pick. He's got Rome Odunze. Let's see. Rome Odunze. He was selected in the 6th round. Hell no. Yes. Paul will select Javonte Williams next year as his keeper, and that's a pretty solid one right there. We've made it to the Super Shredder for Orlando. We've discussed this. We know what's going to happen. It's the only logical selection to make. That is JSN, selected in the 8th round. Kept in the 8th round this season. So he will be kept in the 7th. That is a powerful keeper when you can stack possibly 2 other comparable wide receivers to go along with him, possibly 3. That's very dangerous. The commish selecting with the 10th and 11th pick. I don't like it. I don't think there's any reason to discuss anyone else. When did he select George Pickens? Doesn't matter. George Pickens in the 5th round. And Emeka Egbuka, if he continued to be the player that he was, the commish selected him in the 6th round. That's interesting. Whoa. So he pretty much got him at value. He got him right where he should have got him. It's not like he selected him in the 13th round, but Emeka Egbuka didn't end the season the way he started it. So that will be his selection for 2026. JSN. Fuck you, Orlando. The final team that we're going to discuss is Broadway Boy. We'll be back. Don't you worry. That was just a bump in the road. That's going to be a blip in our fantasy career. TreVeyon Henderson. Look, let me tell you. At the time when this trade was made, I know, when I traded Bucky Irving, I understand that a lot of you probably thought that this would be Kamara 2.0. Though it's not Kamara 2.0 because I gave quality away and I got quality back. Only you didn't believe in the quality when I got it. Now, I'll admit, I didn't think that TreVeyon Henderson was just going to get 20 some odd point performances. Like he was just going to get 3. How many did he get? 3? Let's see. He got 2 27-point games and 1 26-point game. And he got 7s, and 8s. I didn't think that it would be to that degree, but I knew that he would produce something. I knew that he would produce for me quicker than Bucky Irving was going to produce. Bucky Irving, who ended up missing, I think, 2 more weeks after I traded him to the commish. So I figured, okay, this trade is going to be pretty even if my guy's going to be scoring in the 20s and your guy hasn't played in like 2 weeks. So I thought it was pretty even, pretty great trade, and I mostly made it for this reason. I made it because the only selection that I would have had I not made that trade was Jayden Daniels once again in the 12th round of the next season. Now, I gotta tell you, making this selection hurt my team immensely because what you're naturally going to do if you keep a quarterback is you're going to try to build around that quarterback. And that's what this is injuries aside, by the way, that's what I did. I picked up Deebo Samuel. I made a trade for Deebo for DK Metcalf on draft day. And then I haggled Paul for an injured Terry McLaurin. I kept doubling down on Jayden Daniels only for him to get hurt time and time again. It was, if the overall injuries to the star players, in comparison to all the star players that I lost, I think the Daniels injury was the worst because it rendered Deebo sort of useless and Terry useless. Terry was sort of like Bucky Irving in a sense, where the injury report kept saying, oh, there's a possibility of him playing this week. And then the guy ends up playing like 3 or 4 weeks later than you originally thought he was going to play. So that was the downfall. The main downfall of my season was doubling down on a player who just didn't amount to much this season because he got hurt. Now, I have to make that decision next year. I mean, comparing the 12th round with Jayden Daniels and the 4th with TreVeyon Henderson, I'm hoping for maybe Mike Vrabel seeing the potential in this kid. I mean, he's already seeing the potential in him, giving him more reps, but the potential over a Ramondre Stevenson. Sort of a Gibbs over Montgomery situation. That's what I'm hoping for in 2026. But I'm leaning towards TreVeyon Henderson because I've already seen the evidence of what keeping a quarterback means. If you're smart, you're going to build, and it looks like what I built just fell apart. It's very possible that it can happen again next season, and I just can't afford to have another horrible season like I had. So TreVeyon Henderson is in the lead as far as keeper consideration for Team Bundy. And that's about it. Marvin Harrison Jr. I took a chance on him. He let me down. Selected in the 5th by Colton. Pedro, you're all over the place. Go away. These are your keeper selections for 2026. Go fuck yourself. Please.